Chattanooga along South Broad Street over western half of a piece of property that's owned by private parties and which is being subjected to a plan for development by a developer. It is understood that that developer's customer is Publix, and so will St. Elmo area have another grocery store, a Publix? And the dispute is over zoning and the you might say the external control of that private property by interested parties or stakeholders or folks who have something to say about the way things look, the way things feel. Authority exerted through the zoning apparatus, overseen in the end by the regional planning agency with John Bridger at the head. He's the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga because he wears a bow tie. And I want you to understand that the good people, as I call them, sometimes have bow ties, and they are smarter than you. And they know what's good for you, and they have a plan for your life and are here to help. That is what they do. Now, in the studio, we have a man involved somewhat in that perspective, but perhaps not entirely. His name is Garnet Chapin. He is an urban design specialist and an architect. And we want you are perhaps a partisan in what is happening on South Broad Street, Garnet Chapin. So give my listener, if you would, an analysis from give it your best shot. What the issues are, what are the two sides, and what is happening with a map that has been drawn and proposed by a local engineering firm that is sort of on the table but has taken heavy flack.
Well, first of all, David, let me give you a little background. Thanks for inviting me on your show. I opened my first office in architecture and urban design on South Broad Street in 1974. I lived next door, so I worked and lived right in the neighborhood. Over the years, that has converted itself from a intensely industrial area. We were surrounded by foundries, Ross Meehan Foundry, Wheelan Foundry, U.S. Pipe. It is converting to a more neighborhood-friendly area, and with the unfortunate loss of the Mount Vernon restaurant, there is an opening for another grocery store. The neighborhood, over a period of the last couple of years, has participated in a series of urban design sessions and have come up with a plan that has been agreed on by just about everyone, including the folks who owned the property for so many years. The issue now is, does a big box Publix fit in this particular site? This site is unique in that it is going to be where the Riverwalk coming from downtown Chattanooga merges with pedestrian areas in St. Elmo. The UGC zoning, or urban general commercial, calls for a more urban feel, a greater sensitivity to pedestrians, bicycles. I feel confident we're going to have people on bicycles coming from the Cameron Hill area to shop at the new Publix if they choose to come. We have unfortunately had some site planners that don't seem to be able to solve the problem. We have the same developer, the same grocery store, Publix, that we had on the North Shore, where I currently live. I bought a new home within 5 minutes of this new site, and I can see this site from my home. So I feel I have a stake. I have a strong background in architecture and urban design, and have done a lot to encourage community participation.
Well, what are the issues? You say the planner, the designer of that Publix store, that building there now has something that doesn't meet the requirement. Is that the requirement that will allow a rezoning, or where does the zoning rule fit with what's been proposed? Is there a conflict, or is there just a series of complaints by neighbors about this building not having an urban design? And what is urban design, Garnet Chapin?
Well, urban design does want to see buildings closer to the street. It wants it to be sensitive to pedestrian traffic, to bicycle traffic, and to be more user-friendly than the big box setback from the street, big parking lot stores that are the norm.
so the problem with the current plan is there's a big parking lot. Well, if it's a Publix store, Garnet Chapin, it's going to have a big parking lot somehow. So is the problem in the way the building is shaped, whether it is along one side of this kind of a triangular lot or the other? Where is the problem? And help my listeners see the issue if you can.
Well, the issue is the UGC, or Urban General Commercial, calls for the building to be within 35 feet of the street. They really prefer it right up against the street. On the North Shore, dealing with the very same people, we had a strong C7 zoning, and it required that the building address the street. The very same people, developer, Publix, worked with the neighborhood, moved the building to the street, put pedestrian-friendly shops along the side of the building, and we're very happy with it. The store is happy with it. For example, on that street, there's Quick Surge and a phone business on the side of the big bulking store, the Publix store. Right, but
it, a hair place.
It addresses the neighborhood pedestrian traffic, and certainly
because it's small. Those are small businesses.
They're small businesses. An additional opportunity for retail for the developer, which has turned out well on the North Shore, and we think the same could be done here.
So it's thought that the developer should have the building along the side of the street, in which there are little coves for small shop, a hair shop, or a phone business, or a chocolatier, or something like that.
I think that would be ideal. That's certainly what the neighborhood has said they wanted for a series of meetings. The developer came back with absolutely no change to his plan, basically ignoring what the neighborhood had wanted. There are issues of the size of the store. UGC limits a store to 12,000 square feet. This is a considerably larger store, but the folks never even asked for a variance. I'm sure, and John Bridger said at the Planning Commission meeting a week ago, that they would consider changing the square footage requirement to help this project meet the UGC zoning.
Now, mention again, please, Garnet Chapin, the type of zoning that is there now and the request for a change. Why is there, what does the change allow if it's granted? And explain that a little bit further. I'm not quite seeing where the conflict is with the authorities.
This whole area has been rezoned to UGC after this series of public meetings, which everyone had an opportunity to participate in. The C2 zoning allows the larger footprint and does not require it essentially addressing the street. It's a big box store with a big parking lot, and that's about it. We can do better.
And the problem with, again, the big box store is that there's a scale problem. Your idea and the idea of the planning agency is to have, as you say, kind of public friendly with small shops, maybe a place where you can drink something, and there's a way of interacting with other people on that sidewalk versus a giant store with one huge wall and one huge parking lot. That's disproportionate. It's not the right scale. Is that fair way of describing?
That's a fair way to describe it. It's not urban, it's suburban. It's the big box suburban paradigm.
Okay, in suburban, the idea the listener should have is that there everything is huge parking lots, gigantic stores, monolithic, Leviathan-like structures with large national brand names on the fronts, not pedestrian friendly. You don't go there unless you're in a car or truck.
That's right. We are trying to engender new development. Residential development is well on its way. There's a brand new subdivision right behind the old Schultz Tannery. These people will be able to walk to the store. Yet the big box paradigm pushes the building well away from the street and discourages the kind of interaction that you would find in an urban zone.
Again, urban is walking or biking. If it's suburban, it's emphasis on vehicular traffic, the vehicular access, car or truck.
That's right.
And so the parking lot is sort of the center, and the store is I guess, the magnet for that parking lot. Well, you're also part, Garnet Chapin, of a new organization that a businessman, Jim Johnson, is helping to found, Chattanooga's for Responsible Development. What are the arguments of this association, this still loose-knit group? What are your arguments? Where is the work going to be taking place, let's say, over the next 10 years, Garnet?
Well, as we work intensively in the downtown area to create a walkable, bikeable urban environment, Jim and the group, which I'm a member of, is anxious to put a check on some developers who really don't care about these urban values. They will cram as many housing units onto a site as possible to the detriment of the surrounding neighbors, and they will plop down these big box stores in commercial areas. St. Elmo is a thriving community, one of the oldest suburban communities of the Chattanooga area, and they all can walk and bike to this new potential opportunity if Publix is able to work through the problems. All they need is a good architect and site planner. I'd be happy to recommend a few.
This is David Lewis. We're talking with Garnet Chapin, a local architect, and we're talking about the St. Elmo area. Well, St. Elmo, Garnet Chapin, has been noted for the process of gentrification. What is that process? How does it work? What does it do to land valuations? And what does it do, as some progressive critics in Chattanooga have said, to housing availability for the poor? They say that gentrification makes the stock of cheap housing less available.
Well, there are lots of ways to look at the idea of gentrification. In St. Elmo, which is one of Chattanooga's old historic communities and the very first neighborhood to be given National Register status after the Fort Wood downtown neighborhood, there is a housing stock of unique Victorian buildings. They've fallen into disrepair and broken up into apartment buildings. Young people in particular, are moving back into the area. They love the beautiful old buildings, and they are converting what had been low-income apartment structures into renewed historic restorations, and it's provided a great impetus to the neighborhood. I don't believe you can solve the problem of low-income housing in historic neighborhoods. These are the areas that have the outstanding housing stock that we need to go back and restore.
This is David Toulis, and Carl, you're on the air with us at Garnet Chapin on the other mic. What's your question or comment?
I kind of cringe when I hear any kind of government planning or quasi-government planning, because I've been on the other end where I want to erect towers, and some weaselly little bureaucrat doesn't like the fact that there's going to be a 400 tower going up, foot tower, because, it's an eyesore, yet they want cell phone service. Who's to say? In other words, if you can put your house, why can't I put my tower there? What is an eyesore? Your house could be an eyesore. But my point being is, why don't we just let the free market reign? If the people want it, it'll be built. It'll be there. Why have it? I hate interference in the economy. There was natural interference in the economy. It's called the donkey. That was done by committee. So convince me that the donkey is better than the horse. And convince me that government can do anything, or quasi-government, this kind of planning can do anything better than free enterprise with profit motive. Look at the public schools. Look at the failed public school system that does not allow competition. So, I want to be convinced that anything works better than free enterprise in a non-planned system. Thanks.
Right. Well, the caller, Garnet Chapin, is saying we are talking about the operation of socialism. This is domestic and metropolitan socialism that we're hoping to have a good result from. Go ahead.
Well, what we're dealing with here now is not the mandate handed down from the government. This is community participatory planning. For a couple of years, the people in the neighborhood have been meeting and giving their wants and desires to the planners. The planners, rather than necessarily working with the developers, as been the case in the past, are listening to the people who live in the community. And that's what's so important, in my opinion, about the South Broad Plan, which everyone had the opportunity to participate in. People are able to state their wishes and desires. The planners do their best. We've got this reform-based code zoning downtown, which is much more flexible. And in this case, the neighbors participated over a couple of years to give guidelines to the government to say what they want. You can't please everybody. But this is a logical, reasonable way to approach good urban design, and that's why we in the neighborhood support it.
Is there any prospect, Garnet Chapin, of the end of zoning in Chattanooga? We always have zoning, which has some, I'd say, some suspicious constitutional bases, or will there be some way that we can mature as a people to not need it anymore?
Well, the simple answer is no. I know you rolled up Houston, which essentially has no zoning as a paradigm, where the free market rules, and it seems to be doing okay. But have you ever tried to walk through Houston? We need good planning and good design, particularly planning that is set to bring the public into the planning process. That's what we're trying to do here now, and I don't see zoning going away. We are making zoning better. The new form-based code zoning downtown is much better. The new UGC zone that they've established on South Broad is better. It's the result of community planning. If you want to go someplace where you don't have zoning, I would recommend Houston.
Well, say something about form-based coding, Garnet Chapin. You had a hand in developing that idea. Why is it a better system of organization, the top-down organization that we have for the Planning Commission or the RPA? Well, how is that better than what was before? We now have the fruit of what was before as the zoning concept. We have a new idea now, and that it sure looks good right now.
Well, David, the intent of the zoning is to promote development downtown by improving transportation standards, improving the coherency between old and new development in terms of use and size, to reinforce and maintain character, promote preservation, and encourage public involvement in local projects. And I'm a big advocate of the public involvement. We are creating more new urbanists every day. The Chattanooga Design Studio, which has been instrumental in the redesign and rebuilding of downtown Chattanooga, is a resource. John Bridger in the Planning Commission last week said, go see these people. If you don't have a smart enough planner, they can help you. I believe that they will take their advice. This is an agency that offers good, sound urban design. Doesn't cost you anything. These are bright young people. And I would recommend that George Chase sit down with the Urban Design Studio, perhaps without his current site planner, and work through these problems and come up with a plan like we did on the North Shore that gives everybody a little bit of what they are asking.
Are members of the public, though, Garnet Chapin, to be trusted? Who am I to offer an opinion on what should be done in my area? What do I know about? I'm a writer and a journalist, and I studied law and economics. What do I know about building design? Or some working man with his family who shows up at a meeting. Why are they to be trusted for what we should do in our neighborhood? Why are common people to have some say over the operation and use of somebody else's property?
Well, this addresses the caller's question. We don't want to be mandated by the government. They don't are not accountable to anyone. When you get the people who live in the neighborhood participating and giving their opinions, and David, I notice you're not holding back on ever giving out your opinions, and you have a radio station that helps you do that. These planning meetings that have been held for over the last 2 years on this specific area, we're changing from a manufacturing zone. We're looking at the possibility of building a new ball field, hundreds of new housing units. We're exploring light rail transportation in this area. This is going to be the growth of our downtown, and it needs to be done with good urban design.
And you, no doubt, Garnet Chapin will be there to offer consulting services. You are a consultant and know Chattanooga inside and out, don't you?
Well, I'm a retired consultant. I could definitely recommend some good people, but I have my own projects. I bought a beautiful historic house on the side of Lookout over 100 years old this year, and I'm going to restore it. This old dog has found his forever home.
Do you take hammer in hand, Garnet?
Absolutely. And paintbrush and roller.
Okay, so you're a man of the people. So thank you for joining us, Garnet Chapin. This is Dave Choice, here at 97 FM. We're brought to you by news.com, news.com. And you can nominate the website for the people who matter. I say very few people matter. The most of you go there to find out what's going on in outside the deep state. And we've got some great sponsors. Patronize, enjoy, and thank our sponsors for this, your station, 92.7.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Corrections made to the Jeff Stiles police press release. Chattanooga police omitted 2 phrases after learning they were incorrect. Stiles' attorney says the statement that he blacked out and went into red mode was made while Stiles was under the influence of morphine. Stiles was charged with aggravated assault and vandalism following a road rage incident that left him with a shot in the arm. Sheriff Steve Wilson tells the press that 2 deputies were accused by one woman of sexual assault. Those 2 deputies were reportedly off duty at the time, the accuser telling authorities that the 2 men held her against her will and attempted to have sex with her. The accuser was able to leave the apartment and call law enforcement. East Brainerd residents met to discuss the pros and cons of the proposed Hurricane Creek cell tower to be built by Verizon. That cell tower, if it's built, could be leased to many cell carriers, bringing better service down the line. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Keon Rose, Nooga Radio 92.7, Action.